Welcome into KC Sports Tonight, Tuesday, March 25th, aka 2 days away from opening day at the K. But we will start with some pretty significant news in college basketball land, which is news you never want to have to share. But Juju Watkins, the USC superstar sophomore guard, aka the Athletics National Player of the Year in women's basketball, second leading scorer in the country before last night, down with an ACL, confirmed today. Yesterday, we knew it was a knee injury. We knew it wasn't good. And USC's win over 9th-seeded Mississippi State to punch their ticket to the Sweet 16. And then, again, today / middle of the night, got the confirmation from UFC that that is an ACL, which is a months and months long recovery, which in the short of it means Watkins will not be able to play against K-State on Saturday. Kansas State getting ready for their first Sweet 16 in 22 years. They drew USC, which didn't feel very good about when Watkins was healthy. Unfortunately for USC, again, she won't be on the court. So, Gabe, how do you feel about that matchup now with Watkins watching from the sidelines?
Well, she left the game last night with a 13-2 lead, and they still beat Mississippi State by 40. Yeah. So it doesn't mean that USC is not a capable opponent against K-State. I think that the Trojans can still win that game. It just comes down to K-State has a better chance now. I still don't think that I would pick K-State, but I do think that it will be a more competitive game than it would have been previously. It also probably helps, not to any significant degree, but USC was playing the very last game of the round of 32, and K-State had all of Sunday evening and Monday to rest, prepare, and kind of go in. You would think that the coaching staff would know, all right, we could probably start our prep on USC at that point, because they were very much expected to beat Mississippi State. So I think that their chances are better. I still don't think that they're going to win, but I think that it becomes a more intriguing, competitive game, even though it's a bummer that the best player in the sport is not playing. And if anything, it probably just opens the door to UConn, which played an incredible 2 games last weekend, to take over that region.
I was, as we were talking, pulling up the ESPN page to see what the spread was at. I wish I would have looked this up prior to last night because I'm curious how much it changed. But right now it's USC favored to win by. Do you have a guess?
I'd say like
surprised.
9.5.
1.5 is the ESPN line. Yeah, I know. That's why I was getting ready to be like, and they're still favored by 11.5. The line's at 1.5, which shows you ESPN's value in Juju Watkins, and I guess, I guess not unconfidence, little confidence, I suppose, in the rest of the roster. But that's surprising to me to have it that thin. But yeah, I mean, with Juju Watkins, I didn't see this as a winnable game for Kansas State just because, K-State's been able to lock down some defenders, but their star player is Serena Sundell, who typically doesn't guard the kind of 1-2 spot that Juju is, and then you have Aoka Lee, who's kind of the solid 5. But matchup-wise, I didn't love it, but now gets a little bit more interesting, so we'll see how Saturday goes. And then again, as you said, if you win, 99% chance your reward is UConn on the way to in Spokane on the way to the Final Four in Tampa. So, okay, something to watch for this week as we get a little bit closer. Let's move on to, we're going to skip around to transfer chatter because got some transfer news today in the form of Aiden Shaw, Kansas City kid, announcing he is leaving Mizzou, and Bennett Sturtz, kind of the mini hero of March Madness. Drake didn't make it out of the first weekend, but still the Liberty star, who started at Northwest Missouri State, Liberty High School, Northwest Missouri State Division II, on a Drake mid-major. Now he's following Ben McCollum on to Iowa. Kind of a cool route for him. So, Gabe, kind of your top takeaways from the transfer portal news as it starts to trickle in.
Yeah, I mean, we're just going to continue to get more and more of it. I think that today or this early this week is when KU starts to have their end-of-season exit meetings, and that usually precedes guys either announcing that they're coming back or announcing that they're entering the transfer portal. So who knows? I'm sure we'll have a rush of Jayhawks and K-State guys all hitting the portal soon. Aiden Shaw is the first one of Mizzou, and we'll have plenty of those updates on KCTV5.com, so plugging that as well for the online coverage. But as far as the Bennett Sturtz news, Ben McCollum did say today at his opening press conference for Iowa that Sturtz was going to enter the draft as well and at least test it. I saw today ESPN had him as the 35th ranked prospect in this year's draft. So his stock has skyrocketed based on his play.
Again, something I wish I would have seen the boards like 2 weeks ago to know where he was.
Yeah, like I don't even know if he was.
Yeah.
I mean, he was probably a top 100 guy because he was Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year. But to have the success that he did against Mizzou and against Texas Tech makes him a much more valuable commodity at the next level. And just because he can score and create his shot the way that he does, I think that if he comes back to Iowa, you're running the risk, of course, of exposing yourself to a full season of high major level basketball, and whether you're able to replicate the exact same level of success that you did at Northwest Missouri State and that you did at Drake. It's certainly a risk. It's a risk that, like selfishly from a viewing standpoint, I'd like to see what it looks like to see a guy go from D2 to mid-major to high D1 over a 3-year span.
It's a risk that would be even more exposed if he goes to the draft and makes it to the next level and plays in the summer league. So this is a good opportunity to figure out kind of where your sea legs are.
So there's that. And then as far as Aiden Shaw goes, I mean, 92 games at Mizzou. It's rare for you to see guys play multiple seasons at a school at this point. And he gave it a good long run at Mizzou. And I think now he's probably looking at trying to find a greater role somewhere else, and that somewhere else, I would think, given his profile and his skill output, or his points per game output and his rebounds per game output at this point, I would think he'd move down a level to more of a mid-major level school. And Mark and I discussed this yesterday, and the idea of mid-majors and not being able to replicate the same level of March Madness success, but guys like Aiden Shaw going from being a top 100 recruit to, oh, you played a little sparingly at Mizzou, you played 92 games but you only started 12 of them, having a chance to move down and then help a school out that who knows what level it is. Maybe he goes down to a Missouri Valley school, maybe he goes to another, who knows? I don't know. It's too early to guess, and I haven't seen a list of who he's said has contacted him or what those reports are. But you're always hoping that somebody, and that's the new era of college basketball, is all of these kids, rightfully so or not, are being sold on the idea of them finding their maximum value and finding their maximum either monetary value or points per game and effective abilities on the court value at different levels. And so him moving around, we'll see. Best of luck to him, and intrigued to see where he ends up.
Yeah, you said something that I think opens up a really interesting conversation, which is just kind of like the parity level changes that come with the transfer portal rules and everything. Because, and I've talked on this show about how when I was playing, if you transferred, you had to sit out a year. And so that was enough of a deterrent for everyone I knew personally to be like, well, I don't want to sit out an entire year and go through workouts and that kind of thing. So this is the first year in the NCAA tournament, I want to say in 7 or 8 years, where an 11 seed or lower hasn't made the Sweet 16. Arkansas is the only double-digit seed at a 10. And I like to think, and I'm sure there's numbers to back it up, but that a big part of that is because you don't have guys like Bennett Sturtz sticking, and I know his situation was different with coaching changes, but like mid-major stars like Steph Curry, I don't know if he would have stayed at Dayton for 4 years in the current world of NIL and transfer portal and that kind of thing. I played basketball at Wyoming. I don't think Josh Allen, I don't know, maybe he would have, but unlikely he would have stayed at Wyoming for 4 years given the transfer portal options and NIL money and that kind of thing. So just kind of interesting on how we're seeing in the numbers in the big dance with the seeding kind of upset numbers. And again, if you just look at who's in the Sweet 16, how the parity kind of continues to shift.
Yeah, and it's not always, and that's the thing that the fans don't at this point, it's as somebody who liked to see kids play multiple seasons at schools, and you feel like you see their development.
Yeah.
Whereas now you see a kid who played 2 years at a MAC school, and then they transfer to the Big 12, and it's like, well, I don't necessarily. I know that he got here and he had some expectations, but I didn't necessarily see the development. So then if he doesn't pan out, you're just like, well, I guess those 2 years at Ohio weren't what everybody claimed that they were. So it's sometimes it's guys the schools want them back and they don't want to come back. Sometimes it's the schools don't want them back and the guys do want to come back. So there's just so much movement, and I do think that Bill Self has talked about this. He's talked about this last week. He's talked about this in Lawrence. He's talked about this at the Big 12 tournament, that the sport is going to change. Mm-hmm. I would hope that once the revenue sharing comes to college basketball and they're able to make the players more like employees, I would hope that those contracts or whatever the agreements are become multi-year deals. That would be my optimistic viewpoint of, like, at least commit to multiple years at the same school so that we're not doing 100% of the players are free agents every single offseason, because I think that's a little exhausting.
It's unsustainable, and it's also hard, I think for fan bases to get buy-in, when I think about, like, I grew up I watched a lot of Kansas basketball. My dad went to Kansas, and you see a guy like Russell Robinson who starts his freshman year and he doesn't play at all. He starts on the bench, and then his senior year he's the starting point guard for the national championship team. And there's so many examples of that, and how Danny Manning was able to develop big men over the course of their time. I don't know if you would have that now, because those guys transfer for better opportunities, for better or for worse, in this era. So I think Self nailed it, where it's like, I don't know where this is going, but it's not going to stay here, and I think it'll get better. But time will tell. Okay. Jumping back now to opening day, 2 days from now, less than 2 days. 3:10 first pitch Thursday at the K. Gabe, so many ways we could take this, but how excited are you for baseball back at the K? And the first time we're getting ready for an opening day following a playoff run in a decade.
Yeah, I think that's the main thing that's different, is that there's legitimate reason for optimism based on past performance rather than just future projection. And last year, for as much as we were excited about the fact that Bobby Witt Jr. was back and he had just had a 30-30 season in 2023, that Salvador Perez was a familiar face, and people were optimistic about Cole Reagans and the end of his 2023 season that he had. Well, all three of those guys were major contributors in 2024. All three of them were all-stars. You add in Seth Lugo was an all-star. You add in that Vinny Pasquantino was one of the top run producers in all of baseball until he got hurt in August. There's real not delusional baseball takes to be said of like, I think that the Royals can win the AL Central. I think that the Royals have a better than 50% chance of making the playoffs. And the last time that we really had that level of thinking without it just being like, oh, you're just being a sunshine pumper about the Royals, was probably 2016. So it's refreshing to have that. It's optimistic, and it makes what's going to transpire on Thursday. I'm sure that people are going to be showing up to the K with a little bit more than just the gravitas of, oh, baseball's back. Like, here we are, giving me a chance to take off work on Thursday afternoon and go out and sit in the sun.
It used to be
there's real reasons.
Exactly, a good excuse to go to the ballpark and like get a hot dog or something, and then the game was also happening. But now we're looking at a team that, as you said, very good chance to win the AL Central, and very good chance we're looking at another Blue October. Obviously very early now, but it's nice to kind of have some like justified backing to that statement, and not just they played well in the Cactus League. So I think this is our year.
And they did play well in the Cactus League this year.
In the Cactus League. So lots of excitement leading up to that. I think Kansas City is excited, as you can tell by the game being sold out already, and that was a couple days ago now. So plug for our coverage. We'll be there all day long, starting at 4:30 in the morning with our morning show team out there. Gabe, I know Digital is going to have a big presence out there, and should be a lot of fun. Best time of the year. Got a lot of basketball coming up, and got a lot of baseball coming up. Okay. And in the farther distant future, but still kind of happening right now. A little bit of roster swirling over these last couple of weeks. I know we're eyeing the draft, which is going to be here before you know it. But today, Gabe, I saw you had a nice write-up about Trey Smith, hoping still for a lucrative long-term deal to keep him here in Kansas City. This, following news of restructuring Mahomes and Jones contracts, and this stuff really gets into the weeds. But how do you feel about, the opportunity to keep a guy like Trey Smith in Kansas City, not just on this one-year deal he's on right now, but maybe extending that to have a little more meat, especially after the T. Higgins deal too?
Yeah. Well, I think that the obvious take is that they made it a priority, they being the Chiefs front office, Brett Veach, Clark Hunt and such. They made the decision that if they were going to bring back offensive linemen this offseason, it was going to be Trey Smith. It wasn't going to be Joe Thuney. And so that makes me at least think that there is a priority for when Brett Veach said at the Combine that re-signing Trey Smith was a priority. I don't think that that's just a falsehood that he's projecting out to the media. I do think that that's a legitimate long-term plan. I don't think that signing him right now or not signing him is holding the Chiefs up from making other moves. And at this point, you've seen the last 5-6 signings from the Chiefs have all been one-year deals, and it's all been familiar faces, whether it's Hollywood Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Charles Omenihu, Mike Pennell. There's several guys who are being brought in, and it's not a significant financial
they haven't
signing.
landed that monster deal
and it's
yet.
And it's not multi-year deals. Even Jalen Moore is a deal where they could get out of it after a year. Christian Fulton is a deal where they could get out of it after a year if they really wanted to. So I think that there is priority for a long-term extension for Trey Smith, but who knows if that comes this season or maybe it comes after at next offseason. Like T. Higgins, yes, he was the other player who was franchise tagged this offseason. T. Higgins was played on the franchise tag last season. He was franchise tagged last year, so it doesn't necessarily mean that the long-term deal doesn't come ahead of the 2026 season. So I really think that the only other significant roster moves for the Chiefs this offseason will probably just be whoever they draft. And
less than a
we'll
month
get
away.
into that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the 24th. So exactly
basically a month,
minus a day away. What are your top priorities? We're not going to really dive into this. We'll have plenty of time to talk about it. But knowing what the Chiefs have already done this offseason, maybe your first two positions, give me a couple you're looking at.
Well, I think that they're actually in a spot where they're capable of just drafting best player available most of the way, which is the best way to avoid reaching for need and drafting people out of position or out of where they should be spotted. So I don't necessarily know if there's a specific position in round one, but I think that the absence of Justin Reed, whether they believe that Jaden Hicks is the solution or not, maybe they go with a safety in the first couple rounds. Defensive line, they can always add more help to Chris Jones and Charles Omenihu, George Kalafdis, but I think that it's those spots. I think, of course, they're going to draft a lineman, I would think, to give themselves another swing at it because Kingsley didn't work out at left tackle. Jalen Moore is not necessarily locked into long-term there, and Jawan Taylor is a contract that they could get out of after next season. So maybe they want another one of those. The only thing – and running back, I think that that's a room right now that they have several players that they're comfortable with, but they still don't have an explosive running back, barring Isaiah Pacheco getting back to what he was. And even what he wasn't 2017, 2018 Kareem Hunt. It wasn't Jamal Charles. It wasn't anything along those lines. But this is, by all accounts, one of the best running back draft classes in a long time. So I don't think that they necessarily have to use a first-round pick on a running back or a second-round pick on a running back to get a guy who can really contribute. And we saw that with Pacheco. He was a seventh-round pick, and he started at running back on a Super Bowl team as a rookie. So
not bad.
There's plenty of options. I definitely want to – I can't – that's the thing that I am most intrigued for is seeing which running back the Chiefs draft in this class.
2 days until opening day, 4 days until K-State in the Sweet 16, and less than a month from the NFL draft. It really never stops. Lots to talk about on this show coming up, but that'll do it for us today. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you back here, same time, same place tomorrow.